Alright, so with the introduction of the 2.2 patch, we are going to get this new mode, Void Rift Abyss. So, inside this mode, right, this is a new tab for Void Rift, your regular Void Rift. This will be a monthly thing, and then there will be the first season, I guess there will be 5 bosses in total. Subsequent seasons on CN ended up giving us 6 bosses instead. Alright, this is subject to change as always. So how does this work? You still have your regular Void Rift, you still have your same old attempts, right? This is still the same thing, but if you do your regular Void Rifts now, you also get this thing called Void Energy. What does this do? The Void Energy is used over here in the Void Abyss on the tech page. Right, inside the tech page, there will be 3 categories of buffs that you can get: attack, defense, and support buffs. Right, there is still a chance to roll defense or support buffs if you choose to load attack buffs, but if you load attack buffs, it is a higher chance to get attack buffs. Right, these buffs are very powerful. Right, and if you get 3 of the same buff, the buff will automatically upgrade to the next tier. Right, you can only have a maximum of 8, and if you have the same tech, same tier, if you say have 2 level 1 tech that are the same, then only one of them is active. Right, the moment you get your 3rd one, they all combine into a tier 2. And then here, they can be recycled, which yields a small amount of Void Energy. Right, this isn't actually a very small amount. At the beginning stages, it is actually better for you to load and then sell to gain Void Energy. This is a secret CN tech, so since this is the test server, I don't have Void Energy. You can buy them for 15,000 gold each. Where else do you get Void Energy? From Void Rift, right? If you clear that Abyss floor, you get more Void Energy, or you can buy it from the shop. On CN, subsequent events after initial release of Void Abyss, the event shop will also sell these. It was about 8 of these per day. Don't worry about this, don't bother buying it with gold. This is because it's a test server, so I'm using my gold to buy this. Right, at the beginning, when you go in here, right, give yourself a role. If you are a whale, you're a leviathan, whatever you are, you spend a lot of money, maybe even a dolphin player, right, just go attack. You spent all your money, do your DPS, go attack. If you are a free-to-play, I highly recommend you go support or defense, play a tank or support role, and then you support your attackers. Right, these roles, not a lot of people choose defense or support, which ends up resulting in teams wanting a support or defense, because the buffs you get from these are actually very beneficial to the team. A good team comp consists of 2 attackers, 1 tank, and 1 support. There's a lot of buffs in the support side that will boost the entire team's attack. Right, similar with defense, there's a lot of buffs in here that will boost the whole team's defense, a lot of shatter buffs and everything. So it is crucial to have a balanced team. So let's start loading. I'm just gonna go through all of it. Talk about the selling tip first, I guess. So if, for example, right, if I want to be an attacker, you can start loading defense and support stuff first, but like obviously you go here. Right, so if you're an attacker, you load attack buffs. Some of these buffs are not translated yet. This is the test server. There is generic elemental damage buffs. Right, so all of these attacker buffs, they give you base stats, so plus 2,500 attack at its tier 1, and then it gives you fire damage increase 25%. Right, if you get 3 of these, you end up going to 4,500 attack and 45% damage. This is like Wormhole plus Void Rift combined in this mode. Right, you select 3 buffs. At the early stage, do not redraw. If you don't want any of these buffs, don't redraw, select the buff. Right, because, so for example, let's say we want this fire buff. Right, we spent 4 to buy a fire buff. Right, if you redraw for 2, that means you're spending 6 to buy the next buff. Right, this fire buff, you can recycle it back for 4. That means you didn't spend anything. If you did the redraw, that means you wasted 2. Before this consumable count goes higher, over 6 or something, always just select the buff and sell it. Right, because as you load more buffs, the cost will go higher. So here, I want the Vault Attack buff. Keep loading, as you can see here. Right, Now to redraw, it consumes 3 void energy, right? It's not worth redrawing at the beginning stages. Now it costs 5, right? Continue loading, right? These other ones, these are the defensive buffs that happen to load in during the attack buffs. These are very useful. You don't have to select immediately. You can click off and get out of here, right? These are very useful when you're fighting specific bosses. Like if you're fighting Chiron, the last boss, or Gaia. Gaia is actually really hard. Gaia does a lot of damage, and then if you for some reason can't survive Gaia, picking a defensive buff, a physical defense buff, will benefit you a lot in surviving against Gaia. Right here, we'll just continue clicking here, load. We're still not at the higher tier yet, so we can just select whatever. Select this. The more times you load a buff, right, the higher the cost it'll be, and then the better the buffs you get. Okay, this knack for advancement. This buff right here is crucial for every free-to-play or even Dolphin players, right? These give you stars on your weapon. This is the main thing that everyone should get, unless you are a Leviathan or you are a whale with 6-star weapons. Then this thing doesn't do. Then ignore this buff, right? Everyone else that don't have a 6-star weapon, get this buff, because if you get 3 of these, you get 4 free stars. Now if you have a 2-star weapon, if you have a tier 2 knack for advancement, now you have a 6-star weapon. Very important, you go for this. Right now it costs 6. We continue loading. This is an example of going to a level 3. I already have 2 level 1 tech. Now if I select it again, it combines into a level 2. And then all the other buffs that I already have get combined, they're gone, and then they go into a level 2, right? Level 2 buffs can recycle for more, even more, okay? But like obviously if you went ahead and combined for one, don't recycle it, right? Maybe around this point is when we start getting better buffs. All right, you see knack for advancement, we still get this. Keep loading. All right, see right here, this is it. There we go. We have a +4 on our weapon stars now. Right, this is very good for supports even, right? If you are a support and you can only afford a 1-star Lyra, then this buff will get you to a 5-star Lyra, and now you can provide that 5-star support buff, death prevention for your team. Okay, which is very, very good. Very important buff right here, especially this one. Now we load 7. Right, there's healing buffs. This is a support buff, right? Supports should be picking these. Like, you should obviously load and spend 4 void energy instead, and spending 7 over on this side to get these buffs, right? I have the fire buff, one last one. All right, cool, perfect example, right? So now we have blue tier buffs, right? Blue tier buffs cost more, or I mean, when the cost of loading a buff is high, there's chances of getting blue buffs now on this side, right? Green buffs, these ones you can sell and recycle back for 4. These ones, if you load it in, I spent 7 to get it. I can sell it for also 7, right? Even if this is a healing buff, right? This is still in Chinese, but this says healing effect plus 30%. And then this is like a movement preventions, right? You can prevent the boss from moving if you're 6 meters away from it, right? And there's a cooldown. But yeah, this buff obviously, right? Even on that page, if I redraw, I would waste another 4 energy, right? If there's nothing I want, I can still select this, and then I recycle it for 7, right? Now I got my energy back, and I can continue. None of these are useful now, so if I select one and then I sell it for 4, it's the same thing as redrawing for 4, so you can just redraw here. All right, you get how this works now. All right, the moment we start seeing blue buffs, we start getting into the second half of the buffs. All right, the blue buffs get unlocked. So now there's overclocking program, void armor, all this blue stuff. For a DPS, this is technically your tier 2. You want to select these. You take 20% more damage, but you deal 40% more damage, and you gain 3,800 attack. Obviously, you select this, and now pretty much, right? These are the buffs you want to get. So now we buy more. Let's buy a few more of this, right? So What happens when you run out of void energy? Right? Imagine if I don't have a lot of void energy, I want to continue rolling attack buffs, and then I can already see blue tier stuff, right? You can look inside support section, and maybe you can find some good stuff here. Supports should be getting these. If we're not a supporter, then we don't get these. But yeah, there's like healing effect increase, team resistance increased by 25. So there's a lot of team buffs. That's why like supports and tanks are kind of required, because an attacker, you can only have 8 buffs total. Attackers are focusing primarily only on attack buffs, and then support and defense buffs are supposed to go on to your support or tank, right? That's how you have a balanced comp. Otherwise, if you're purely attack, you take more damage, no one's healing you, no one's taking aggro from the boss, you just wipe, right? So this is why support and tanks are necessary. So in this situation, you just pick whatever, don't redraw, pick whatever, and then go sell it, recycle it, keep trying, right? See this one's a great one, right? Healing effect plus 20, right? And then you gain an aura, right? And then your whole team's damage is increased by 25. Even an attacker can choose this buff, right? This is a good buff even for attackers. Continue loading, right? Knack for advancement. We no longer need this. We no longer need any of these. And the cost is high now, so we can start selling and forgetting about this side. Let's continue loading attack. Let's continue loading attack. This is bad. None of these are good. If we have, there's no level 3. Eventually on CN, there's tier 3 buffs, right? You can go to tier 3, but the first iteration of Void Abyss only has tier 2 buffs, so don't bother going higher or trying to get higher than tier 2. Redraw. All right, Shadow Burst. This one gives you attack and also gives you 20% crit rate and crit damage increase. Right, this is another attacker buff that everyone should be getting. Nothing here we care about. Yes. This is another buff, Obliterator. Okay, that's what it's called in English. So the Obliterator buff is also very crucial for your success in Abyss Void. It gives you generic attack buff. All attacker buffs give you generic attack, right? Just like all healer buffs gives you healing increase. This attack buff, when the target's HP is less than 12% tier 1 or 20% for tier 2, there's a 10% chance that your attack will instantly kill the boss. Right, so this is basically an execute buff. Only one person on the team really needs this, but you might as well get it, right? This will basically cut the fight down. Right, the last 12% of the boss's HP is just deleted. There should be at least one person with this buff. It could be a support, it could be the tank, it could be an attacker, but someone needs this buff. Otherwise, you're gonna have a hard time. Continue loading. All right, we can try to get the tier 2. So we start selling stuff now. Right, so I have 2 obliterators. Right, this one is not in effect because, right, I already have one. We continue loading. And then this final attack buff, we finally found it, Heart of Thorns. All right, this is also important to have, right? I should continue rolling for this. Heart of Thorns basically says for every monster you kill, you gain a damage increase up to 15 stacks, right? So this Void Rift Abyss is the same thing as normal Void Rift. At the beginning, there's little mobs that you have to kill anyways, right? So if you get this buff, make sure you go and kill 15 mobs, okay? Then, yep, we get the overclock, the tier 2. Now we have more space. Tier 2 will turn into purple and it sells for 18. Obviously don't sell it. Load again. Shadow Burst. Continue loading. Heart of Thorns. Right, and you should only just choose a buff that you are actually running. So obviously I don't want to. Let's get rid of Flamed Attack. Get the Heart of Thorns. Good. Redraw. Okay. Obliterator. The Obliterator is also tier 2. Right now we just need tier 2 Heart of Thorns and tier 2 Shadow Burst, and this is a full build for attackers. Let's see. Thorns. Load again. Shadow Burst. That's perfect. So in this situation, selling these gives me 7. Redrawing is also 7, so it don't really matter. We just redraw. There is Heart of Thorns. There we go. And this is basically your full attacker loadout. Like, there is no more. You can't get better than this. Now you have 2 extra slots for other things. Right? If this is the case, you don't really need anything else. So go look for defense, right? The last couple bosses, they do vault damage and physical damage. Lots of physical damage. So you want to just, you know, take reduced vault damage. Take reduced physical damage. And you're done. This is it. This is what you should look like as an attacker, right? Your main elemental attack buff, tier 2 Shadow Burst, tier 2 Overclock, tier 2 Heart of Thorns, tier 2 Obliterator, right? You gain a lot of stats from this and then some defensive stuff so you can survive. Alright, defense buffs. You have to get this, Breakpoint Slash, right? Shield break effectiveness. Only the tank is actually shield breaking in this mode, so this is crucial. You have to get this. Numerology. Tanks don't really need this. You probably get this for the plus HP anyways, but escaping death as a tank doesn't really happen. You have so much fucking HP, you don't die. You never go to 0 unless, you know, you don't have all the buffs. You don't need this buff at all. This is a buff for the attacker, right, for skill issue attackers, just in case the healer didn't heal you fast enough and you got one shot. There's a 2 or 1.5 minute cooldown. Also get this, armor and layers. That's 2 buffs. 1, 2. Avoid armor. This is pretty good. Basically, if you're a tank, just get all the tank buffs, right? And then you want to get mechanical core or whatever core thing, the one that gives you certain resistances to whatever, depending on the last 2 stages. You look at the last stage and you look at the boss, and then you get the specific resistance for that boss to stage 2. So basically, top left is the boss's attack damage. The bottom is the unique buffs for the stage. For our first month, apparently it's all elemental weakness. For CN later on, there will be damage over time to the players and even more reduced healing. We don't get those for our first month, apparently. Support. How many support buffs are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You have 8 buff slots. Just get all of them. Or obviously there's this one, right? So you get rid of one that's the most useless. Like these time slow ones, these could be helpful. Not necessary, right? Reduce endurance consumption. This is pretty useless. I feel like this one is the most useless. And then this one's also pretty useless, honestly, I would say. Unless there's like some bosses that like to run around or whatever. Like you should never focus on these, right? And then restore 1 dodge attempt every 3 to 2 dodges. This is also pretty useless. Assault resonance is good, right? Damage dealt by allies increased by 45%. If you're a support, you must have this buff. There's also, protective field, resistance by 45. Right? All these team buffs, right? These are disgustingly broken. You need all of them. And then also this, right? Give people shield when healing them, right? You can get a +4 star rating for all weapons, right? So this is very important for free to play. Anyone that doesn't have 6-star weapons, very relevant to everybody that's not a whale, that max 6 stars, right? So everyone should be focusing on the knack for advancement tech, right? These defense buffs, all these mechanical defense buffs, these 5, they all correspond to different type of elemental resistance, right? Damage reduction. So the goal for these buffs, even as an attacker, right? If the content will be hard for global, you look at the last boss on stage 5, or just focus on Gaia. Gaia is actually fucking hard. Even as an attacker, there's only 7 attack buffs total. So as an attacker, you do want the damage reduction for, say, Gaia. You roll your last buff, a 20% damage reduction for physical, right? Gaia is actually fucking hard, so probably get the physical defense buff as your 8th buff. So if you're free to play, you should try to be a defense or support. Leave the attackers to the whales. But if you don't have whale friends to do this with, even free to play can do decent damage, because look at these buffs, right? Look at these buffs. 7,000 attack. How much attack does a whale have, right? Without these buffs? 25,000? About 20,000? Let me just say this is like 3 buffs worth, right? It honestly doesn't really matter. The discrepancy between a whale and a free-to-play in this mode isn't that high. If you don't have whale friends, this is still doable if you have buffs. It's just you gotta do it at the end of the month once you get enough tech. So the difference between a free-to-play and a whale is literally just one extra buff in attack stats. And the fact that there is a +4 stars. There's a +4 stars right here that you can get. If you're free to play, you're pretty much at 6-star all weapons if you get this buff too. The only difference is the matrices. Your matrices damage. But again, if you look at all these fucking attack buffs, a support giving you 45% damage is basically equivalent to every single whale matrices they're equipping. If I buy tech for one stage, it'll stay for next stage. Your tech will stay for the entire month, and then it'll be reset once we get to the new month. Fuck it. Send. Who needs the tank? Not with the frost whale, huh? Right, so much more damage. Right, how much damage did that do? Like nothing. It did no damage. Let's see. Do we wipe? Do we wipe? Okay, we didn't break shield. Do we wipe? Wow, this thing's supposed to one-shot people. It did nothing. Holy fuck. Alright then, global balance. Bruh. That first hit is supposed to like one-shot everybody. Wow. Don't even need to, all you need is a healer, I guess. Let's be honest, this is probably still harder than G-Game, from what I've seen about G-Game. Obliterator just makes it go faster, right? Obliterator kind of needed. We broke shield. At least get Obliterator 1. Alright, wait for the shield. Every time he starts hammering the floor is when the shield shows up. And then make sure you save some discharge for this. I don't think we broke shield. Did we? We don't take damage at all. What the fuck? That thing is supposed to one-tap people too. Holy fuck. Obliterator goes burr. My Obliterator didn't even trigger. Wow. Look at that damage.
Not bad.
How?
Act quickly. Don't get careless. You're interfering with my official business. Don't get careless. Act quickly.
Real broke? How? I don't know.
Not bad.
Can I actually die?
Don't get careless.
I know I can, but like... Normally when you get hit by stuff like that, you die. Not on global.
Don't get careless. Act quickly. Don't get careless. Act quickly.
Okay. Broke shield again. I want to believe that this content is hard,
Don't get careless.
but it isn't. I want to believe that this content is hard.
Act quickly. Don't get careless. Act quickly. Don't get careless. Act quickly. Don't get careless. You're interfering with my official business. Act quickly.
I like how this is always on a 1-minute timer. It's pretty lit. It perfectly aligns with Coco.
Not bad. Act quickly.
Ah, fuck. I didn't time the thing correctly.
Don't get careless. Act quickly. Don't get careless.
Alright. That's that.